Very pleased to welcome into the studio tonight to talk a little bit more about the arena funding idea that they have. The leader of the Wild Rose Party, Danielle Smith, is in the studio. Danielle, I know you've done a lot of this today, including an hour earlier on this station today. Thanks very much for coming back in.
Thank you. Well, they wouldn't let me talk about politics at all. They said if anyone wanted to talk about politics, they had to tune into your show. So thank you for having me on.
Okay, well, and thank you for not giving up the goods earlier and taking away the reason for people to tune in right now. We're talking about the initiative that you have worked as a party to put together to bridge the funding gap, specific to the Edmonton arena right now, but we all know that Calgary's got ideas of their own arena on the horizon, and they're watching very closely what's happening in Edmonton. Anybody that's been paying attention knows that the funding model has been very much in flux, but we think we've got it nailed down between the Cates Group and the city. But there's still $100 million there that the city is convinced will come from the province eventually, probably through the municipality sustainability initiative that they can use towards the arena. But so far, it's not there. And you're saying, as the Wild Rose, you've come up with an idea to get it to be there, get it to be tangible. Tell us about it.
We are trying to find another way of doing it. We recognize that as much as people love their NHL teams, and that's both the Oilers and the Flames, that there is a reluctance to take taxpayer dollars and funnel it to a hockey team. We've got millionaire hockey players and billionaire owners. That's a hard sell. So what we wanted to do is to give another option that allows for people to voluntarily support their team, knowing that a portion of it would go to be able to build a new arena in both cities. And what we have proposed in the past is having a lottery. And we thought that because Mayor Mandela has put forward a deadline of trying to get a deal by the end of this month, he mentioned that last month, we thought now was the time to actually put some details around it. Since I started talking about this, there was a consultant who has worked not only for AGLC in Alberta, but also worked in lotteries in BC, has also consulted with both of the teams. He proposed to me this idea of using the game of Keno as a way to bridge this funding gap. The Keno is very well played, very popular in British Columbia. It generates well more revenues than it does in Alberta. We think if we applied the same kind of approach that they did in BC, it would not only allow us to raise significant revenues, but it would allow us to be able to bridge that gap for both teams, we think, within 5 years.
I'll be honest with you, the timing of it seems disingenuous to me because I'm not sure. I mean, as you say, the deadline is the end of this month. If the PC party took this and said, wonderful idea, we're going to go ahead with that. Can you get this in place in a month and have the revenues go from $3 million to $196 million a year?
No,
right away?
Not immediately. But in talking with this consultant, the nice part about where we're at in Alberta is that the infrastructure and the technology is already there. We have 88 places in the province where you can play this 5-minute Keno right now. In British Columbia, it's 4,000 locations. And to roll it out in Alberta to the 2,200 lottery outlets should not be a difficult task because they already have it set up for all of the other types of games. Allowing for restaurants and bars to be able to set it up, again, should not be a difficult task. There are already a couple of bars in the Edmonton area who have this game, one in Nisku and Chateau Louis as well in Edmonton. And essentially it requires having a big screen TV so that you can display the numbers and also having the terminal that allows you to process the ticket and get right into the system. Because it's a little bit like Lotto 649, where you choose your numbers, you put it into the machine, it gets registered, and it pops out your ticket for you. So there already is the infrastructure there. We wouldn't have to build from scratch. The consultant I spoke with thought that we would be able to go from where we are right now, rolling out to 1,000 pubs and bars and the 22 lottery outlets within a year to 18 months. And I think that time frame meets the kind of time frame that we're talking about for construction. So you should be able to get the money flowing from this before the arena's even built. And we think that that's the kind of thing that Albertans could support.
So the construction of the arena ideally is going to start sometime in the calendar year 2013. I mean, really it needs to. It needs to start ideally sometime in the spring of 2013 here. And you're talking about going from 88 to 3,200 locations. If that takes a year to 18 months, are you imagining a mechanism in place where you would project future revenue and then loan the city of Edmonton based on that, or would they only get the revenue as it actually comes into a bank account somewhere? Because if it's only getting paid out once it comes into a bank account, I really don't imagine anything significant for 2 years at least, probably.
And that would be something that would have to be worked out based on the experience that we've seen in other provinces. They have experience with this in Atlantic Canada, where they rolled it out to 200 bars. They have experience with this in British Columbia. We have seen that the levels of engagement of players wanting to play different types of lottery games like this is comparable in Edmonton, or pardon me, in British Columbia and Alberta. So in talking with this consultant who's familiar with both markets, he does think that it is doable. But again, it is something that will require the work of the AGLC, the provincial government, the two municipalities, as well as the two teams to figure out a funding model. Even if it doesn't pan out to this level immediately, you could take the view that you stretch it out over 10 years to be able to bridge that $100 million gap. I think that there is a way to be able to make this happen. And the nice part is that once you've established this program, you're funneling the money through to the municipalities of Edmonton and Calgary. Once the arena is paid for, then you have an opportunity to continue using that money as a source of revenue for the municipalities for other community infrastructure, for arenas or outdoor rinks or for field houses. So we think that this is what these kinds of programs were originally designed to do. When this type of lottery approach was taken, it was to fund athletic and recreational facilities. So I think this is getting back to the original purpose of these kinds of games, and we think it would tap into a completely different market. We think those details can be worked out.
This is Danielle Smith. She's the leader of the Wild Rose Party. Today they put forth a proposal to use the lottery game of Keno on a much expanded basis to fund provincial component of both the Edmonton and, in theory down the line, Calgary arenas. You're talking, again, going from $3 million revenue per year to $196 million revenue per year. You've worked with small business a long time. You know that no matter how good an idea is, you and I could open up the best ice cream shop and we could put it in 1,000 places. Doesn't necessarily mean people are going to go. You could come up with the best game and the best branding. People might not play it for whatever reason. People might not play it it might take a while for the brand to catch on. What if you get into a scenario here where pick a year, you fund it over 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. What if people don't play?
I guess I would have to rely on the experience that we have. And the fact that we've got two NHL teams in this province, which is very unusual, to actually be able to have two NHL teams. I don't think that there is a marketing department better than what you would have with the Oilers and the Flames franchises. If both of those teams are out marketing this product, if you have tickets that have the branding of the Oilers and Flames on it, if the Keno boards have the branding of the Oilers and Flames on it. I mean, we've got a lot of hockey fans who are in my office in the legislature. They say, yeah, well, I don't normally play Lotto 649, but if I was sitting there having a beer with friends and it was up on the screen, I might play a game or two. And that is what they have found in British Columbia, that the success of this game has been when it's been marketed through the sports bars and the pubs, because it is a social game. It's the kind of game that you play when you're out with friends and you're watching the game on TV. So I have a lot of optimism. And you know what? Maybe what you do is you do it as a trial project. You try to roll it out to a limited number of sports bars and see how it goes. If you actually do the branding, I just have a lot of confidence that the teams will find a way to make it work.
I think that sounds like a great idea if it was 2008 or 2009. There's no time for trial project here. It's time for provincial money, provincial contribution. So, we're at the point, this file has been in front of the provincial government, the PCs, for 4 years now.
Yep.
And your claim is that their action has not been, that they haven't done enough to explore options like this. At the same time, by your own admission, we're a month out from a deadline here. This is the first thing your party's put on the table, and simply there's just no time to do it.
I guess this is then where we would part company with the provincial government. We just simply don't think that there's a public appetite to take taxpayer dollars and give them to the NHL franchises. That's why we think that there hasn't been an agreement over the last 4 years. They realize how difficult to sell that is. And now that we are facing the worst financial crisis in this province's history, and I don't exaggerate when I say that, when we're talking about a $3 billion deficit this year, there is going to be zero appetite to take dollars that could be used to build schools and nursing homes and hospitals and say, hey, why don't we do that? Why don't we send that to build arenas instead? But this is a completely different source of revenue. The work in being able to market this would have to be done by the teams. The value in being able to get this game played would be because the Oilers and the Flames are backing it. It is a new source of revenue. It's a proven source of revenue from other municipalities and other jurisdictions. And we like the fact that it's voluntary. If you don't like the idea, you don't have to play the game. I think that the government will have a very difficult time trying to sell to the general public when we face the financial crisis that we do, that taxpayer dollars are a better option. We're just trying to put another option on the table.
So your contention would be that this Keno game expanded to 3,200 different locales would not be successful if it was branded the Stollery Children's Hospital Keno game. Because in theory, if this is a great idea, you could use it to raise money for all of the things you just mentioned that you say are more worthwhile.
And ultimately, we hope that it does generate revenues that would then be able to go to charities. We when we were looking at the model for this, we believe that when it's fully rolled out, it may generate $196 million, out of which, after you pay the payouts to the players as well as the administration costs, you may end up with $49 million left over. So you would have $9 million that would go to charity. When you think about it right now, through this game, there's only $300,000 that is flowing through to charity once all the costs are taken out. So it seems to me there's actually a fairly low level of risk that if we can actually have a 5-year period where we're able to fund both arenas using the brand of the Oilers and the Flames to be able to market it, in addition to getting an additional $9 million to charity, and then 5 years from now having a broader conversation about how those dollars can be used, I think that's a risk worth taking.
Back to the general philosophy, speaking of risks worth taking, of your party as a provincial government, or right now the official opposition, but perhaps one day as the provincial government, in terms of investing in projects like this, whereas, just looking at the cultural fabric of the province here, if you were to, particularly in Edmonton, say downtown needs to be revitalized, we're going to pick something that's going to be a catalyst for that. I don't know that you could pick something that would be better than a downtown arena, because the Oilers really did put Edmonton on the map, and the type of job creation and revitalization of downtown, that's an overused word, but we'll stick with that. Why then, from a provincial tax dollar perspective, when you're looking at the quality of life of the citizens here, why is that a bad investment for a province?
I think the problem comes when you're looking at equity throughout the province. That this has always been a challenge for provincial governments, is how do you balance the needs of Edmonton versus the needs of Calgary, and the needs of Edmonton and Calgary versus the broader provincial community. I think that if you were to ask general provincial taxpayers whether they felt that their tax dollars should go to fund these two projects, I think you would find that the majority of Albertans would not be in favor of that. But you know what? We would have sports fans for the Oilers and the Calgary Flames in every single community in the province who would, I think, be voluntarily willing to pay a certain number of dollars to be able to support their team. So I think that this gives us the best of both worlds, and it also allows for us to have a mechanism in the future to be able to fund more community infrastructure throughout the entire province.
So I guess just to wrap it, this has been rolled out today, and you've done, I think everybody's fairly aware of it now, you've done a lot of media to roll it out today. To the lay person out there, like me, doesn't know the answer to this question, where does it go from here?
We've asked the Premier to consider it. I've written her a letter. We've also been in contact with both of the mayor's offices, letting them know that we're going to be sending them a letter so that they can consider it. Now what has to happen is that the finance minister has to sit down with the two mayors as well as with the teams and see if they can find a way to work it out. This is just one option. If they have something better, then by all means, let's see what those other options are on the table. We think that this is very low risk, very low cost, could easily be rolled out. We know that the teams are supportive of this type of approach, because the consultant that I spoke with had put this on the table back in the 2000s when they were looking at a lottery option. The last time they tried it was a bit of a dud.
It was a mess. Yes,
I don't know if you look at the ticket. I mean, I looked at the ticket today. I couldn't even understand it.
Just scratch it, take it into the retailer, and have them scan it.
It was pretty common, and it only raised $1 million. So I think that if we can get that level of buy-in, and also the public has the buy-in, I think that we can actually move forward on a solution. Because I agree with you that this is a core piece of municipal infrastructure that goes beyond the hockey team, because there are so many other community activities that take place within the facility. There's trade shows, and there's concerts, and there's arts activities, and then all of the economic development that happens around. When Mayor Mandel identified that this is the priority for his city, it seems to me as official opposition, we've got to try to find a way to put forward a constructive proposal to make that happen. And we hope that that's the spirit in which this proposal is taken.
Well, I'll tell you what, at least gets the conversation back rolling again, which is something very, very important here as we approach a deadline that we're probably far past what we would all have liked it to be. Danielle, really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for stopping back by.
Appreciate it.
Okay.